Jai Hind everyone. I am Shruti Jain, Assistant Professor from MCA Department from the college AKGEC Engineering College in Ghaziabad. So today we are going to study a little bit about the requirement engineering process. This comes under the subject Software Engineering KCA 302. So before understanding what requirement engineering process is, we'll first understand what requirement engineering is. So if we talk about requirement engineering is basically, if we talk about the requirements, whenever any person comes to get their software to be built to any of the team members, so the team members try to understand what requirements are they coming up with. So requirement engineering is a process which helps to find out, analyze, document the requirements of the user. So this is actually the requirement engineering. So the end result of this requirement engineering is the SRS, that is Software Requirement Specification. So if we try to understand it by the definition point of view, requirement engineering is a disciplined application with the proven principles, methods, tools, and there are different notations, because every time writing all the requirements in a theoretical manner is very difficult. So there are certain notations which help the team to understand what is the requirement of the user. So these describe a proposed system's intended behavior, what the user wants the software to do, and its associated constraints, because it is not every time necessary that whatever requirements the user is coming up with, the development team is able to fulfill all the requirements. There might be certain constraints. It is not, the constraints can be of the form, maybe the storage or maybe the memory constraints, or there could be many constraints which come up with the requirements of the user. So these constraints are also told to the user beforehand, so that they are also they also comply with those along with their requirements. Now if we talk about the SRS, because that is the end result that we get once the requirement engineering is being done. So it is actually a contract between the developer and the customer. The developer tells that the customer gives his requirements to the developer, and developer complies to all those requirements and give the constraints that these could be the constraints that are available, and hence it is a mutual contract that is being done between the developer and the customer. So the requirements themselves are the system services descriptions and constraints generated. This is the most important part, that the constraints are also generated and this system services description is also maintained. So both the things are important. System service, the descriptions are given in detail so that the user can understand, the developer can understand that these all descriptions are to be there in the software, and the constraints are also given by the development team so that the user also can understand that these are the constraints which he has to adjust with the software. Now coming to the software engineering process, because we understood what software engineering is, now we'll try to understand what exactly the process it follows so that we come from the starting point of view till the end. So the first part is requirement elicitation. Requirement elicitation is we are gathering the requirements from the user. Once the requirements are gathered, they are analyzed by the development team whether all those requirements can be met or not. Once these requirements are analyzed, they are documented, because everything cannot be done orally. There should be something or the other thing which needs for the documentation. So here this documentation comes in the form of SRS. And the last one is the review, wherein we validate whatever requirements the user has given at this step are being taken up in the SRS and will be taken up in the further phases. So these are the four main steps which start with elicitation, gathering of requirements, and end up to the review of all those requirements. So if we try to understand it diagrammatically, now for the crucial process, this is the main process that happens. It starts from here where the problem statement is being studied. The user comes up with the statement, problem statement, that yes, I want to have a particular software to be built. Then it moves into the requirement engineering phase, wherein the requirement engineering process that comprises of these four, we'll do that later. Once the requirement engineering is done, the end result of it, that is the output of it, is the SRS. So we start from here. This is the first one, and we end up to the SRS, which is a contract between the user and the developer. Now coming to the requirement engineering, we already discussed in the previous slide that this is a first step, that is the gathering of requirements. Then those requirements are being analyzed, they are documented, and hence once they are documented, they are reviewed. So these are the four steps that we are going to study today about the requirement engineering process. Coming to the first one, that is the problem statement or the feasibility study, that is this part. We'll first understand what is this, and then slowly we'll move on to the next slide, the next activities. So the first thing that we talk about is a problem statement. The problem statement is basically the problem that the user comes up with comes up to the development team for the software to be built. So feasibility study activity involves the analysis of the problem. Now the user came up with the problem, it will be analyzed, and all the relevant data will be collected at relating to the product will be collected, and then it will be slowly analyzed. Now in the feasibility study, one more thing is also checked, whether the project that is going to be built by the team, is it financially or technically feasible to develop the product. Because sometimes what happens, the demand for the product can be for a very short span of time, and by the time that product is launched or that software is launched, it could be a possibility that it is not technically fit, or it is not financially that much of benefit for the user as well as the team. So this beneficiality of the product is also checked in the initial stage itself, whether the product will be feasible or both in terms of technical and financial, so that when it is developed, no one is at loss and everyone is benefited with this. So the collected data items are analyzed to arrive at the following. The first one is the abstract problem definition. What is the problem definition? What is the definition, what is the actual problem that is being done? Then formulation of different solution strategies, because it is not necessary that everyone will come up to a single solution. Each and every problem has dynamic, different solutions from different persons. So what are the different solutions that can come up for a particular problem? Those are being formulated over here, and then the alternate solutions are also being analyzed, because sometimes it happens that we start with a particular solution, but after some time we understand or we realize that this solution might not be helpful in the long run. So we should be initially ready with different solutions so that we can compare their benefits and shortcomings and then decide the best of all the solutions that are available to us. So the main focus of it is a product concept viable? Is it really helpful for the user and the team? Will it be possible to develop a product that matches the project's vision? That means if we develop a particular software, will it be meeting what exactly the project needs to do, and the estimated cost and the time period in which the development team will be completing the software. Now the first phase of the software engineering process, that is the requirement elicitation. As we have already discussed, that it is known as gathering of the requirements, wherein the requirements are identified with the help of the customer and the existing system processes if they are available. Because sometimes what happens is user already has some sort of software with him and he wants to have a compatible software which can work along with the already existing software. So there the requirement elicitation will include the requirements, the new requirements that are coming from the user side, along with, if there is already some system present, it will help them also to to establish the compatibility between the two. Now, if we realize that it is the most difficult and the most critical, error prone and the most communication intensive process, because if the requirements are not gathered properly, they are not analyzed properly, then at the later stage the quality of the software will be impacted or will be affected. So, the better the requirements are being gathered and they are analyzed, it is easy and it improves the quality of the software. So, it may involve the end users, managers and the engineers that are involved in the maintenance and many other parts, like software has multiple domains. So, this requirement elicitation includes all those people who are included in the software development process, and those are known as the stakeholders. Now, the question arises, how do we identify the requirements from the user? So, we have different methods. These are the 5 methods which helps to identify the requirements of the user. The first one is by conducting interviews, brainstorm sessions, FAST, QFD and use case diagrams. So, the first one is the interview. Interview is one-on-one. The developer, the customer is sitting in front of the team or the member of one of the member of the team, and then he gives his requirements to that person. So, in the interview, it is not necessary that it is only a one-time interview that is being conducted. It could be conducted multiple times. So, during the meeting or the interview, both the parties would like to understand each other, because if the interviewer or the interviewee don't they are not coming up onto the same grounds, then it would be very difficult to understand or analyze the requirements. So, both of them should understand each other, and the objective of conducting the interview is to understand the customer's expectations from the software, because it is a customer who gives us gives the team what are the requirements which can be which are to be turned into a software. Now, if we try to understand this diagram, here both the parties, that is the interviewer and the interviewee, they have a common goal, and that is the success of the project, because the project is a main thing for both the developer and the user. Now, interview could be open-ended or a structured. Open-ended would be the interviewer the person who is interviewing will be posing different questions, and the user will be answering those, or it could be in a structured format wherein a proper structure is already being made, and the interview happens on the basis of that. So, that structure. Now, if we take an example of result management system, the type of questions that can come are, what is the problem with the existing system if the user is already having any calculation errors. So, this is these are the questions that are being asked if the user is already using a software and then he wants to add on some of the things. Possible reasons, if the software is not functioning properly, then what could be the reasons, or how for how many students it is being used. Now, the benefits of asking those questions would be like, how are you maintaining the records of the previous students? So, it would benefit it because they know what is the process of being being taken up to maintain the already existing records, and any requirement of data from another system if it is there, any specific problem. So, once the user gives all the details, it would be easy to incorporate all those details into the further processes of software development. So, in the end, we have a wide variety of expectations on the proposed software. The second method that we have is a brainstorm session. Brainstorming session is, we have a group of people sitting together, then coming up with innovative ideas. So, it is a group technique wherein the group discussions are being done. The two things that are there is, the new ideas come quickly because there are many people, they are coming up with different ideas, and this leads to innovation or creative thinking. So once a brainstorm session is being done, a long list of requirements are there which are categorized. First, they are categorized into different categories, and then they are prioritized, like, because the software cannot be developed in one single cycle. We have different modules of prototyping methods, we have different models to develop a software. So on the basis of the model that the team is being taking, so they prioritize the requirements, like in first model what will be executed and given to the user, later on what all things will be taken up. It is prioritized, and the non-required, or the ones that that the development team can think that these are not of any use, they are pruned together, they are removed. So this brainstorming session happens in different types of groups. We can have the groups of users, we can have the managers, and we can have all the stakeholders together. So understanding it, we have already discussed that brainstorming is a group technique that is used during the requirement elicitation, and it helps in understanding the requirements of the users. So here what do we have? After brainstorming session, a detailed report will be prepared and reviewed by the facilitator. The facilitator is a person who will be finalizing all the things, or all everything that is being discussed in the brainstorm sessions. Next comes the FAST, that is facilitated application specification technique. It is similar to brainstorm session. Here what happens is, it is a team oriented approach. Different teams sit together, they analyze a problem, they find out the requirements, and then they proceed. So here what happens is, here the creation of joint team of customers and developers is there. It is not like only the customers are being sitting, only the stakeholders are sitting, or only a certain set of people are sitting. It is everyone who is involved. There is a team that is being created that includes both the customers and the developers, and then the requirements are gathered, or they are taken up, or they are noted down and analyzed. So these are the guidelines wherein the meeting is being arranged, the rules are established for participation, then a facilitator is appointed, and hence the participants, that is mandatory that the participants should not criticize or debate at a certain point of time. Now if we talk about the fast session preparations, so these are the activities or the list of the objects that each attendee is asked to make. What is a part of the environment, what is produced by the system, used by the system, the list of constraints, functions, performance criteria. So these all are the list of objects that are included in the session. This is prepared initially, which is given to the user, and then the discussion happens on these pointers. So once these pointers are already prepared, so the time is not wasted on like structuring the things. Only the thing is that we have that the team moves into the detailed discussions of each and every point. The next one that we have is a QFD, that is quality function deployment. Here what happens is, the customer is talked verbally, the customer is verbally talking, and then the technical requirements are being taken up from the voice of the customer, or what the customer verbally told, and then it is documented. Here the technical requirements are gathered, and then they are documented, and once they are documented, these documented requirements are done keeping the customer satisfaction in mind, because customer satisfaction is a prime important for the software to be developed. Hence whatever the customer tells verbally, it is being noted down in the form of the requirements, which is in favor of the customer satisfaction. Now the requirements could be of three types: the normal requirements, expected requirements, and exciting requirements. So if we talk about the normal requirements, these are the requirements that the user asks, or the customer gives, that I want all these things to be incorporated in my software. Expected requirements are those which the user don't have to say, but yes, the development team will automatically give. That is not said, these are already understood. Expected requirements are already understood requirements which need not to be told to the development team, but yes, the development team keeps that in mind and then prepares the or then develops the software. Exciting requirements are the requirements which are beyond the customer's expectations. Sometimes what happens is, when an unauthorized access is detected, it should back up and shut down all the processes. So this is one such requirement which the user cannot think of, but yes, the development team gave as an additional to the user. The next requirement elicitation method is the use case approach. Now, the use case approach, basically the use case diagrams, they give the functional view of the software requirements. Once the functional view or the diagrammatic view of the requirements is being done, how are the people involved in at different levels in the software usage, then it is very easy to develop a software. So this approach is a combination of text and pictures, that is the diagrams and the text, which helps or improve the understanding of the requirements. So if we talk about the use case, we have the three main components of the use case. The first one is an actor. This actor is an external agent who lies outside the system model but interacts with the system in one way or the other way. That could be a person, that could be a machine. For example, if we talk about a library management system, so in the library management system, the faculty members or the students or the admin or the librarian, these all are the actors who would be using that library management system. So we have already discussed about the actor. Then we have the use cases. The use cases are the functionalities or the modules that are being made into the software. And this relationship identifies the relationship between the actors and the use case. How a particular actor is related to the use case, in what way, that is being defined by the relationship. Then we have these use cases are in a form of a rectangle, which talks about the total system or the subsystem, which will be which includes different use cases or different models in the system or in the software. So this can be considered as a system of a software. So a little bit detailed, that the use cases should not be used to capture all the details of the system, only the specific details, the important details are captured. Free of design characteristics requirement. It is, we don't go into details, we just talk about what the system is and how the things will be done. We are not talking about, we are just talking about what the system, how the people will be interacting or how the actors will be interacting with the system. So this is an example of a use case diagram for the result management system, wherein we have three actors: data entry operator, administrator, or the student or the teacher. So if we talk about this login, here for the result management, the data entry operator or the administrator will be logging into the system to understand what all things will be there. Then this data entry operator will be only maintaining the student details, subject details and the result details. While if we talk about the administrator, he is a person who will be generating the reports and viewing the results. Now, this student or the teacher are not accessible to any of these because they don't have to maintain all these details. They can only view the result that is being generated by the admin or the data entry operator. So, this clearly shows which actor will be interacting with which of the use case. So, once it is being implemented later on, it is very easy to understand how many, like what all actors will be given, what all responsibilities. Now, coming to requirement analysis. In the requirement analysis, we still have, drawing the context diagram, prototype, modeling the requirements and finalizing the requirements. So, coming to the first one, that is drawing the context diagram. So, here the context diagram is of in this form, wherein we have some of the inputs coming and some of the outputs going out. So, in the result management system, these are the people, administrators. We have subject information entry that is being done into the result management system, and the output would be like mark sheet is generated, student performance report is generated. These are the outputs. So this gives like what all things will be coming into the system and what would be the results of the context diagrams. On the basis of the context diagram, a prototype is being developed which talks about how the things will be going on or moving into the next stage. Here the visualization of the proposed system is done. Then those requirements are modeled into the form of we have DFDs, we have ER diagrams, data dictionaries and the state transition diagrams. Now coming to the once we model all the requirements in the form of DFDs, ER diagrams, then those are finalized, and once they are finalized, finalizing means the flow of data among different modules is being discussed and they are finalized and analyzed. Then once they are finalized, then they move on to the documentation stage. Before that, let's understand what is the data flow diagram. The data flow diagram is a graphic or the visual representation of the flow of the data through different business processes, the way we have understood later on, the previously. Now, the DFD diagram does not show the elements which control the data that was there in the use case. If we talk about the DFDs here, we have two main symbols, the data flow and the process that is being discussed, how the data is coming into the process and what we are, how it is going out. These are the symbols like source or link, which talks about the source of the system input or the sink of the system output, input and output that is going on. And data store is a repository of data wherein the data is stored. We have different levels of DFD because we cannot move into the detailed DFD at the very first level. So we have the level 0 DFD, which does not talk about the detailed things, but it comes into the very normal stage. Slowly, as we move into the detailed view, we move into the level 1 or level 2 DFDs. So if we try to understand the level 1 DFD over here, so this is the student info management system wherein the student details, this is a repository, subject details is a repository, and these are the links that are coming. So here who all people are here, marks info management system is interacting with this, the report generation is being done, user account management is being made. So here this is how a detailed DFD looks like. Now if we talk about the level 2 DFD, here only we are talking about the login part and how everyone is being connected with this login part is discussed. This login will be retrieving the user's info from the user's account info, and then the student will be entering the username and password, the teacher would be entering the username and password, admin would be entering, and everything will be taken up from this place. Then we have the data dictionaries. These data dictionaries are the files or the set of files that include the database metadata. Now these are mostly related to the database part rather than the modeling part. So there we were talking about the functionalities, but here we are talking about the storage of data. Then we have the ER diagrams. The ER diagrams talks about the entities, relationships and the attributes. Entities are the different maybe the persons who are interacting with each other, and attributes are the characteristics of these entities. So if we try to understand it by the ER diagram, so here we have an ER diagram wherein if I talk about a user, user is an entity over here, login is an entity, and these are the attributes. That means this login will be having an attribute of password, this user will be having an attribute of user ID, and hence the ER diagram is being made. And these are the relationships, these arrows are the relationships. These are the relationships that are being established between the two entities. Now, we have different types of entities, different types of relationships between the entities. Now, if I talk about this, this is a relationship how a customer is connected to the policy. So, these are the two entities, the customer and the policy. These are related to each other by the insured relationship. Similarly, the policy and policy claim is being related to each other by made against. So this is a relationship. We have two types of relationship, unary and binary. Unary is the relationship between only one entity, which could be one-on-one, only one direction in one direction. This is one to many, where we have multiple employees who are being managed together. Binary could be one to one, one to many, many to many. One to one could be one employee is related to the parking place, whereas in one to many, a product line can be related that contains a lot of products. Many students are connected to, can register for many courses. Similarly, ternary, where we have three entities rather than one entity or two entities. So attributes we already discussed. These are the characteristics of the entities. Now comes the requirement documentation. So this documentation is the SRS that we already discussed, that is being written by the customer and by the developer. It serves as a contract between the customer and the developer. Now, what is the need of the SRS basically? So the need of the SRS is we need to have a proper documentation so that we can later on validate what all was written in the SRS initially, and is the software that is being developed, is it really giving all those things that the user or the customer requested for. So SRS should correctly define all the requirements. It should not describe any of the design details, on only the theory part, and it should not impose any additional constraints. Nothing is changed later on. Whatever is discussed initially is being taken up in the SRS. So these are the characteristics, that it should be correct, it should be unambiguous, there should not be ambiguity between the two things that the user requested for. It should be complete in all terms, because later on the validation part is done with the SRS, and it should be verifiable, that we can verify that later on whenever the project is developed, is it as per the requirements by the user or not. It is ranked for that, is it stable, it should not change after one or the other time, but yes, we can modify as per the users, or like when there is a mutual consent between the development team and the customer. It is traceable and it is consistent. It should not be changing again and again. The last part, that is the requirement validation. We check whether the document, the SRS that we have made already, is it complete? Is it, does it have any errors, or does it have any ambiguous requirements? So we check the document in all the aspects. For the document here talks about the SRS. So this is the requirement validation process, wherein the SRS document enters into the process, the organizational standards come up and the organizational knowledge comes up. Everything is validated and the result is a list of problems or the approved actions. So both the things can be there. So if we talk about the process, we plan a review. Once everything is being done in the previous stage, we plan a review, then we distribute the SRS documents to everyone. Everyone read those documents, organize the reviews that are being done. The actions are followed up and then the document is revised. Once the document is revised, at the later stage, again the planning part takes up, then the reading and rest of the things. Thank you.